Okay, welcome to the information session for the Sustainability Science and Society grad program. My name is Marilyne Jollineau, and I'm the graduate program director for what we affectionately call the SAS program here at Brock. So welcome to those of you online who are joining us, and we will take questions from you as well. Just to make some introductions, we have in the audience the Environmental Sustainability Research Center Administrator with us, Amanda Smits, and we also have the Center Program Coordinator, which is Erin Daly. So the three of us will be presenting this material and answering various questions that you may have about our program. So first I'll go over some slides where you'll get maybe a better sense of what the program is about, and then of course we can have a nice discussion about some questions that you have, and we'll of course also give the audience online a chance to have their questions answered as well. And just note that first slide has some of the website resources and the email contact information should you want to follow up with us after this presentation. Okay, so the Sustainability Science and Society grad program started here at Brock back in 2014. I was part of developing that program, so that was really nice for me to see how the program has kind of changed and evolved. And we think that's really important because a lot of issues around sustainability science, of course, change almost every few months, right? So it's nice to see that the program's changing with societal change. So an important piece is that we think about not just the sustainability science, but society is a really big, or human beings are a really big part of what we do. So this particular program tries to aim to facilitate society's transition to sustainability, and we try to do that in a few different ways, primarily through enriching research and applied experiences. So students that are part of our, what we like to think of as a kind of a team, students that are part of our team get exposure to different research activities that are happening in the Environmental Sustainability Research Center, homed here at Teal House. Applied experiences, those include research experiences, obviously, where you get to really get, your hands-on experience in many different ways in terms of the research. We're offering quality graduate education. So in your learning, you're also getting applied experiences as well as a theoretical background to sustainability science. And then you're also engaging in problem solving through innovative pedagogy. And that's maybe a fancier way of saying basically that you engage in research, and in our partners in particular, because that's an important piece of what we do, is actually transfer the knowledge that we generate here out into the community. Right? So knowledge mobilization is an important piece, and you engaging in that sort of problem solving piece is really an important part of what we do and what we want our students to do. So there's two basic streams that you can follow. They're both, they both have their pros and cons. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And I can also invite Amanda and Erin to also make some comments should they wish to. So you'll notice that the chart's organized by term. And so we'll start with Stream A, which is a major research paper and co-op stream. And that stream is 16 months. So it takes you from September to the following December, where you do have courses that you take. Those courses are typically shared with students in Scheme B. Some of them are core courses. And what's really nice about that is whether you're a thesis student or a major research paper with co-op option student, you're mingling with people together that are part of the program. So you're enriching each other's educational experiences. So we like that we have some synergies between the two different streams. And then there are also other courses that the MRP students take that the thesis students don't necessarily take, right? So there are fewer courses in the thesis side versus the MRP. The major research paper has a few more courses. And then, of course, an important piece of that is that you have a co-op term. And that co-op term is typically May to August, right? Just coming up to the end of your first full year, right? So it would be in the third term of your study that you would have that work placement. And of course, at Brock, we have a co-op office that not only provides some training for students in the MRP in the first term of study. Actually go through some training around professionalism and how to generate a CV or a resume and how to put together a cover letter for a job application, but they sort of walk you through those steps, and then they help you find connections, or they'll work with you on connections that you've already made in the community. Right, and beyond. It could be outside of the Niagara region, of course, which is really exciting for a lot of students who would like to work elsewhere, right? And then there's Scheme B, is the thesis stream, where again, students take some core courses together with the MRP students, but then they also engage more so in the research side in a way that's a little bit different from a major research paper. So they work, again, closely with a supervisor on a research project, but then they write a little bit of a longer document where they're making a contribution to the research, and typically they may publish a paper coming out of that process. They may have plans to pursue a PhD, but that's not a necessity. So you don't necessarily have to go the PhD route in order to engage in the thesis stream. So what I've found to date is many students who come through Scheme A are really looking for that work placement piece. They'd like to get professional experience while they're also going to school, right? The students that go through Scheme B also get experiences because we typically engage with project partners that are outside of the university. So a project partner that we have established at this point, one example would be with the town of Lincoln. So students in our program have engaged with the town of Lincoln, by taking a co-op placement there to, being on a field trip there, right? So you don't necessarily only get experience working outside of the university when you're in Scheme A, right? So that those opportunities happen in both schemes. Are there any questions about that slide?
We'll make sure you have a hard copy of this before you leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll just speak to the core courses. Because some of, yes, okay,
yeah. A quick question.
Sure.
Is it, I don't even know if this is possible, to do a conjoint thesis? So say you wanted to do like societal impacts, but you also wanted to do something like in a lab. If you do a conjoint thesis with someone who's here and someone in another faculty? I just wondered.
Okay, so what I should say too, which might be helpful in this context, is that often when you're doing your MRP or your thesis, you have a committee. It's like a team of researchers, if you will. And that team includes, we have several affiliate members of the ESRC across campus. So you could work with a faculty member that's outside of this home unit, because this home unit has 4 faculty only. It's a small unit. But we have faculty positioned elsewhere on campus who would work together with a student. And they may be your supervisor, maybe a co-supervisor, or they could be sitting on your committee. So there's someone that would also read your MRP, or they would be part of your thesis work. So yeah, so that's...
When you're on the SAS website, you can find them under faculty. So their reference is core and participating faculty with the SAS program. And any core faculty member could supervise your thesis.
Okay.
Good question. So just a little bit about the courses, and you'll see that in term one, there are a few courses there. 5P01, SAS 5P01 is a Foundations of Sustainability Science and Society course. And that course is really important for bringing together all of these students from various backgrounds and bringing them together to talk about what is sustainability science, right? How do we define it, and what does that mean? Who are the researchers doing work, and what does that look like? So that at least everybody comes to the table with the same understanding and explore the topic of sustainability science first, so that everyone has a foundation before you move into developing a research or MRP proposal, right? Or thesis proposal. Then the second course that you take is methods. What are the methods that are actually used in the discipline, right? And why? So you get a sense of not only like what's the topic and where might your interest sit within it, but then what are the different ways that we actually approach those topics, and what are some of the methods, whether they're qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method approaches to solving the challenges or opportunities even that we face in terms of sustainability science. And then lastly, we have something kind of unique to our program, which is a transdisciplinary seminar. And it's shown as a P course. That P, for anyone who isn't from Brock, the P represents a course that runs either September to December or January to April. If there's an F in front, it's typically a full year course. So it's like a half-year course, if you will. That course actually runs every 2 weeks over the full year. So from September to basically early April. And that's a course where we invite guest speakers to come to the class, typically one from a research background and one who's either in business or some other outside of academia, and they come together and give a presentation on a similar topic, right? So for example, you could have someone come from that studies corporate social responsibility or carbon offsetting, right? That might be an academic here or from MAC or from some other research institution. And then you might have somebody in business who actually uses CSR in their daily operations, right? So we like to bring together those two worlds. And, you know, most people across campus are invited, and even outside of Brock are invited. It's an open presentation. Yes, Peter.
The methods course. Good memory, by the way. The methods course is an F or a P?
Oh, it's a P course.
Okay.
Yeah. So it right at the moment is running in the fall term. Yeah. So those are the three that are really those core courses where you're together with your cohort, whether you're thesis or MRP. The other courses, elective courses, we also like to make those of interest to the students, right? So typically there might be a special topics course that we run in any given year, or maybe some other course that has relevance to most students in the program. So it might be around climate change, for example. We're seeing obvious interest in climate change, right? So that's one course that can be offered as well as an elective. Okay, so what are the admissions criteria? So on the left side of the screen here, a 4-year bachelor's degree or its equivalent from an accredited university, a minimum of 75%, so that's sort of mid-B average over the last 2 years of full-time study at the undergraduate level, and then proficiency in English. Should that be something that you need to look at? Those are the sort of 3 main criteria. And I just want to make a note, often I get questions from students about that minimum average. That minimum average is it's kind of a defining line for even the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies. It's not something that they take very lightly, because we don't obviously want to set up a student for failure, right? So dipping below that line means that I need to provide a case for a student who comes in below that there's some exceptional or extenuating circumstances that resulted in that average, right? And only then, once there's been some discussion and consultation, that a student may end up being admitted to the program. But there are no guarantees, obviously, even if you're over that average. But if you're under it, you would want to maybe have a conversation around that. That's really, really important.
We had a question online, Marilyne, about how many applicants we had last year and how many spots we have. So normally, last year we had almost 100 applicants, and we filled 10 to 12 spots normally on a yearly basis.
And often those are filled with domestic but also international students. Okay, so in terms of the application checklist, the first is obviously to ensure that you meet those minimum criteria as required by the university, and the Faculty of Grad Studies governs that piece, that you ensure that you have all the requirements to be considered by the SAS Grad Program Committee. And I'm the chair of that committee, right, as director of the program. So what we look for is this list of items: a CV or a resume, curriculum vitae or a resume, a written statement of intent. This is really particularly important, is a ranked list of 3 core faculty who you have an interest in working with. And there's a link here to that, our website, but there's a listing, as Amanda indicated to Liv earlier, there's a list that you can actually look through. There is no obligation on the student's part to reach out and contact that faculty member. It's a list that you rank of your preference in working with potentially three different individuals. We also ask that you have 2 academic references, your transcripts, and of course, proof of English proficiency. So that's the list. I would draw your attention to the Next Steps website, and I can show you that after. And I believe we have a link, at least, to how to apply, and so you can get to that site. What's really important to going and visiting that site is that it more fully describes those items in the list. In particular, your statement of intent. So it actually clearly articulates some of the key pieces of information that we're looking for in that statement. So you want to make sure that you demonstrate your understanding. You understand that these are specific items that we're looking for, that you address those in your statement of intent, right? So that's a really important piece. I would say another important piece that you want to draw careful attention to is your 2 academic references. And I always have quite a bit to say about academic references, but it's really important that you choose academic references who are familiar with you and familiar with your interests and your desire to apply to the program, and that you've had a conversation with them, right? That's a really important piece. You want to give them lots of advanced kind of warning in that, you know, they're going to need to prepare a proper letter for you. And genuinely, as a faculty member myself, I genuinely want to be able to support my student, but need the time to be able to craft a letter that's going to be appropriate to the specific program that you're applying to. And what's really helpful to a lot of academic references is, 1, to have a clear understanding of what you're interested in pursuing, what degree, this applies to any program you're applying to, what degree program are you applied to, maybe a link to where they can find that information, your current and up-to-date CV, your statement of intent for the program, and then some additional information. What courses did you take with them? What was your final grade in the course? What was your average, right? These are the kinds of pieces of information we can use as evidence to support our reference for you. And really, we're making a recommendation to a program based on our experience with you, right? But that reference request might come, maybe I only taught you in 1 class, and maybe that was 3 years ago, right? So it's just helpful to have a little bit of information, and so that we can have even a conversation by phone or in person, right, about your interests. So think carefully about who you choose. It's really important that they are an academic. So you would want to choose someone who's a professor, for example, at the assistant, associate, or full professor rank, or someone that's worked with you at the college as a professor, versus somebody who has served as a teaching assistant and they had you in their class, right? That's a different kind of relationship, right? So we don't typically accept references that aren't academic. There are options for exemptions, but that's a pretty rare case. But at times, if you have, 7 years of work experience in the area, then it may be an option. But really, we're looking for those academic references. It's also important to make sure that the person's actually sent in the reference, right? I mean, you can't control some of that because I don't think you can see it. But if you can see online that only one reference is in and you're getting closer to the deadline, then just a friendly reminder would be appropriate. And then, of course, lastly, you would want to submit the application and pay the related application fee.
When is the deadline? Just curious.
The deadline.
February 6th, 2020.
Anybody want to add anything else to that piece?
There was a few questions online around IELTS scores.
Okay.
And so anything to do with the English as a second language, those questions should be forwarded to gradadmissions@brockview.ca. That's not a program responsibility. Yeah. And we had a question around if there was, I don't know if anyone here is interested in business, I can't remember from the talk, I don't think so, around if we had somebody for corporate social responsibility, and that would be Todd Green, would be the core faculty member there.
Any other questions from, yes, Shannon?
Dumb question, but a reference letter, can it be someone, maybe supervisors in the sustainability department? Is
Yes.
that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And even if he was like, I was looking at using him as my advisor for this program, it's
Yes.
still okay that he's a reference?
Yes, and
Okay.
he's core faculty.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely.
We also, had another question about if you graduated years and years ago, about academic references. And we've said in the past, we will accept non-academic references, but our preference has always been for academic references. You always want to make those connections back. In the past, if somebody's been out for, say, 20 to 25 years, we've accepted professional reference letters from an employer, but you wouldn't want to do that with like a part-time employer type position. I don't know if you want to say more to that.
No, I think that's appropriate. I know that students at times have thought about using an employer that maybe can't really speak to your academic background. Then that could be a bit of a challenge, right? But if they could speak in some way to your academic abilities, that's really important. In some cases, employment includes conducting research, for example, so that would be one way to demonstrate that experience. Okay, the post-degree career opportunities were often asked about, what could potentially come next. So we try to give you a little bit of a sampling. These are specific examples that come out of our program, potential career paths that students have taken, as well as sample research areas and sample co-op positions. And again, you'll see that there's a wide range from the transportation piece to, someone working as an intern at the town of Lincoln, right? So there's sort of varied experiences there. People have worked at GM, for example, General Motors. So there's lots of different opportunities for students in terms of the co-op piece. And again, the co-op office has done a lot of work in building a good database over the last 4 or so years of the program.
So for the co-op, is it available for you to travel for that co-op, or is it based
locally?
No, it doesn't have to be based locally at all. So we've had a student actually work in Quebec, for example. I believe it was in Gatineau. Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, you can travel. Yep.
We've had people work out east as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in fact, the co-op office is keen for you to engage in activities that take you, if you are from the region especially, to take you outside of the region, right? And there's not an expectation that you're doing the work of your MRP while you're on that co-op term. You're meant to be fully engaged in developing in a professional way, as well as learning about sustainability, of course, so it has some connection to sustainability. But that you engage entirely in that work experience, that professional experience, is really important to us.
And are they generally paid?
Yes, they are paid. Yeah, there's no exception to that rule. Yeah, the pay may vary depending on your background, the qualifications required. So there may be some slight variability. I've not seen it dramatically different from one co-op position to the other, but again, because it's with a specific employer, typically there's an hourly rate that's agreed upon between the student and the co-op employer.
I guess my question backtracks a little bit. You said you don't have to reach out to potential supervisors, but like, could you reach out to them to discuss their research? Like, if you have several people in mind, that's okay. It's not frowned upon.
Yeah, you could reach out to ask to speak to them, but you're not obliged to do that, whereas in the past you would have been. Okay, that rounds out the presentation piece. I had, obviously we have quite a bit of information there for you to reach out to us should you have any additional questions. But I just want to also show you, I mentioned this site that you can find online here, apply today. And I just want to note that when you go through, is there a way for me to show that?
Yeah, there should be. Why isn't it?
I don't know.
Hold on just a second. Can you exit out of PowerPoint completely?
Sure.
Sorry, I don't know why.
Oh, that's okay. What I just want to draw your attention to is this written statement of intent that I talked about, that there's more information. So I'll give you an example. This document should convey the rationale for seeking entry to the program, as well as describe how it advances your professional and academic aspirations. It should be written as a free-form essay, no more than 2 pages in length. So a letter that does not address your rationale for seeking the program, right, is going to miss this detail. That's really important. What's your rationale? Why would you like to seek out this program? How does this advance your professional and academic aspirations? And make sure that it's not beyond 2 pages, right? It's meant to be something that we can, read in a very reasonable amount of time and understand what your interests are. You should also indicate your desire to pursue Scheme A or Scheme B. So these are, maybe small details, but they're really important for us to be able to understand, what your interests are. And then also try to make sure that the 3 ranked faculty members that you rank in your application coincide with, if you discuss them in your letter of intent, which is not a bad idea, then make sure those match. Otherwise, it creates some confusion about who you're interested in working with. And that's really important because we have to think about who's available to serve as a supervisor and how many students are they able to supervise and when and all of those pieces, right? So some faculty will be on sabbatical, so we need to be sure that we understand fully who you're interested in working with, right?
We had a question around funding online. Do you want to speak a bit to funding, or do you want me to?
Well, sure, you can do. I just have this website open.
Yeah, but either way, the website isn't great about understanding. So the program, both schemes are fully funded. What that means is you'll have 2 types of funding. You have a grad assistantship from the Faculty of Graduate Studies, And then the other piece of funding comes in the form of either a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship. And so that's how the program is fully funded. So one of the sums of money you would get up front to apply on your tuition, and the other part of the funding would come every 2 weeks when you're paid as a TA or an RA in the first year of your program. That makes sense.
You also don't apply to TA in the first 2 terms of the program. So you would be placed into a position based on should you be qualified, and based on your sort of academic background, we would look at those pieces. So you wouldn't have to also apply while you're worried about applying to the program. Yes.
When you say TA or RA, does that depend which scheme you're in? Or is it?
No, it's almost entirely dependent on our needs in the program and the background that you come from. Because your background may be well suited to the job description for an RA versus maybe a TA.
They're both fully, like what is the actual funding amount? Is it's enough to cover your tuition? Like for both?
So the funding package there's actually a breakdown of the funding package on the Faculty of Grad Studies under their financial resources. And you can actually go through understanding the funding package, etc. But the package as of the year 18-19 for grad students will typically receive a minimum of domestic students $15,576 per year, and international students are $22,076 per year. Yeah. But they actually have a great breakdown, and there is a spreadsheet that we can circulate as well that gives a breakdown, depending on whether you're a domestic student or an international student, the costs, etc. So that, yeah, and they put in there like an expense sort of spreadsheet.
And then if you're a thesis student, would your advisor be able to provide additional funding depending on the grants that they're operating under?
That's right,
Okay.
yeah. But it's really specific to the faculty member that you're working with. So there may be additional funds, there may not be, but you're working typically an average of 10 hours per week, and you're not meant to exceed that. That's a Government of Ontario, a provincial government regulation that makes sense to me, that, you know, taxpayers are funding the education of students, but they don't want you working full-time off campus or even on campus and also trying to pursue your studies, right? So that's a really important question, Shannon. Katie, did you have a question?
I think you answered it.
Oh, okay.
About the TA and RA.
Oh, okay, yeah. Peter, you can ask a question?
No,
Okay.
it's basically a contract between the individual and the university that says I will not work more than.
There is a contract that you do sign for that employment piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
When applying, can I, looking at the fact that I did my education back in Ghana and came here to do international business, can I, with the respects to the references,
Yes.
can I use the references here to help me out with the application?
Absolutely. You can use an academic reference here or in Ghana,
Oh, okay.
right? If you worked,
Oh, okay.
yeah, with a faculty member in Ghana, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Or of course at the college too, right?
Oh, okay.
We're good.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's sort of the presentation portion. We're happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Yeah, my question is about the transferred credits.
Transferred credits,
Yeah.
yes.
If you are a student in a different institution overseas, can you transfer credits and taking this course as a like completed program?
It's common to do that, especially at the undergraduate level, but I imagine that there's an opportunity to do that at the graduate program level as well. That would be something we would explore with the Faculty of Grad Studies, typically. where there'd have to be some close synergies between the two courses. Typically, it would be a requirement that it's a graduate level course and that the content is quite comparable. So often there would be a request for the course outline, etc., so that we can make those comparisons, right? There's also typically a cap on the number of credits you could transfer. So just be aware of that piece, that, there's a minimum amount that or maximum amount that you can't exceed.
I have a question. Given that I'm a master's student, can I use my master's transcript or do you need my undergrad transcript?
So they take both, but the reality is they only calculate the admission average on your undergraduate courses. It doesn't make sense, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
It's so everybody's measured on the same playing field of an undergraduate degree.
Go ahead, Katie, and then Liv.
So if I were to, so I'm doing my second undergrad right now. If I were to apply for the Sustainability Science and Society graduate program for next September, without finishing my second undergrad,
We would ask that question, I think.
Okay.
I haven't had that specific example.
because I hadn't decided whether I wanted to apply before I finished it or
Okay.
for next year. So I
Right.
didn't know how much of a difference it would make.
Yeah, let's
Right.
double check with grad study on that one. So that's just grad admissions at Rocky, and just ask them which credits they would take.
Liv and Peter.
Yeah, so because I'm going on exchange, my course credits don't count towards the average at Brock. Will you request the transcript from Australia and evaluate those included? Because I'm in my 4th year, and next year I'm just taking my thesis credit. I'm not taking other credits.
From my understanding though, the transfer credits from overseas are just pass fail, no?
Yeah, so do you not take those even though they're in my last
You'd have to ask grad studies. I think they'll take your last 20 marked credits.
from Brock?
You should double check that for any master's program.
Yeah, that's why I figured I'd ask you.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I emailed other places and U of T wants the transcript from there.
Yeah, and I'm not positive. Let's check with grad admissions again at Rocky.ca.
Peter.
I'm just sort of sorting through the mess of all my transcripts. I guess I could send you a roadmap of when I did what, and so you could actually figure out what group I'm at.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be me.
Studies?
Yeah, you would send it to grad studies, grad admissions. You could ask them the question and have the conversation with them.
So they're open to that conversation.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They're here to support students who want to apply to the program and or potential students that have questions around those pieces. Absolutely. Yes, Victor.
Can you my last question?
That's okay. You can ask only one.
Yeah, considering the tuition fee for the domestic international students,
Yes.
it's a little bit just unclear because someone, or as like a Canadian status, can he or she apply as a domestic student and get a what? Or still have to apply as an international version? Did you get it?
No.
So basically, if he has like Canadian citizenship now, like if he'd be able to apply as a domestic student.
Are you a permanent resident?
Yes.
Sorry?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Not
Okay, so permanent residents are considered.
If I can get a loan, I can take the loan from the bonds.
What's your status though? Is it a visa card that you have or?
It's like already been accepted as a permanent resident.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a process,
Like
but
a formal letter been accepted.
you should be fine. And we had one student like that last year. As
Yeah.
long as it's been formally
Yeah.
accepted, you're good. Yeah. So you pay domestic student rates.
Are there any professors at Brock that deal with local food distribution or food in general, or Niagara's food channels, food systems, anything?
I'm thinking of our core faculty in our program, core and participating.
I think we'd have to reach out with that specific topic.
Yeah.
This is pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I haven't had that one come up though before.
Yeah.
So no students.
There's a lot of faculty who work in Niagara on research, but I wouldn't say specifically on food systems. So there's agriculture,
Yeah.
such things, but not food systems.
There's kind of
Like we're talking
close.
about distribution. Of,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just because Niagara's known
Yeah.
for growing a lot of food, and
Yep.
just
Yeah.
if there's been any students, current or past, who have looked at or how much are we importing food, like what are we growing, how can we make ourselves more sustainable here in Niagara?
Yeah.
Because we have all this land and fertile soil. So, I mean,
I would say like not that specific topic.
Yeah, but close to
So
it.
we have like adjunct faculty who work at Marilyne Research and
Yeah.
Innovation, where they're looking, they're basically modifying crops to be more,
more conventional farming and like pesticide use
Yeah.
versus like.
Yeah, so we have one crop who looks at sustainable agriculture, and that might work for you. Just not the food distribution piece specifically, but that's not to say you can't work with a crop who's done something in that area, and your research is going to focus on something slightly different.
Okay.
There was just one other question online. I just want to flag for all of you really quickly. We're being asked about specific stats on employment after the program. And our program, so we don't have specific stats. So I can tell you we keep in touch with most graduates. And I would say that like at least 75 to 80% are employed in the field of sustainability.
Yeah.
And in the topics they focus on specifically.
I just had a question about the co-op. Like, do you guys assist with like finding co-ops through like networking events, things like that, or is it pretty like generic as you're on your own to find the co-op?
The co-op office actually goes and does engage in the networking piece. If we're aware of an employer that, you know, we talk to someone, we can direct them to the co-op office.
Okay.
They're the main hub of dealing with, you know, reaching out. They have talent acquisition officers that actually, that is their role at Brock, to reach out to potential employers and have those conversations. But we can certainly provide the names of companies or individuals who would like to work with a co-op student.
And you have access to the co-op jobs board.
Yeah.
And even last night, for example, you take a co-op course in the fall when you're in that stream. And they had a networking event last night with 6 different employers in the field of sustainability. So they really do try and help. The tricky bit is like, it's still, you're applying. You're not being guaranteed a job, right?
Yeah.
It's still an application process for all of those co-op positions.
It's the same co-op. Like I'm in the Goodman co-op program now. It's the same office.
It's the same office. No, yours is different. Goodman has its own co-op wing. So it's the Brock co-op office. Yeah.
Like Action A.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There's actually student office space as well for this program that's in that part of campus. Yeah. So there is a space for you where we have a sort of station set up with a cupboard that has a key to it, and then a monitor and a keyboard, so you can come and go from that office space. So your cohort, the new cohort, has its own room, and you have swipe access to that room. So you can have a space to, you know, hang your coat, if you will, and work out of when you're here on campus. So if you're on the weekends or evenings, you can still access that space, which is, I think, great. Yeah. Okay, well, feel free to reach out at any point. Our main email is ssas@brocku.ca if you have any additional questions, and we will provide that presentation, those slides for you, so that you can peruse through, and then you can take that handout as well with you. And again, we just want to thank you for coming and attending today online and in person, and feel free to grab some food on the way out. Thank you.